Most people think their financial problems start when they spend money. They don't. They start earlier, at a moment you don't even register as a decision. A moment that feels harmless, automatic, almost invisible. And once that moment passes, everything that follows starts to feel inevitable. The argument with yourself comes later. The regret comes later. But the outcome, that gets decided much sooner than people realize. By the end of this video, you'll be able to spot that moment in your own life, the exact point where money stops being flexible and starts locking you into a path. If money were just about intelligence, the smartest people in the room would always be ahead. They aren't. Doctors struggle. Engineers struggle. People who can do complex math in their heads still feel behind. That's not random, because money doesn't live in spreadsheets. It lives in real life, inside habits, defaults, and systems you move through every day. Most financial advice assumes you're making clean, logical decisions one by one, but you're not. Most of the time, money moves the same way your phone unlocks or your apps refresh, automatically. That's why trying to be smarter with money feels exhausting and never seems to stick. The issue isn't that you don't understand the numbers, it's that the numbers aren't where the decision actually happens. And until you see where that decision really takes place, everything you do after feels like you're constantly reacting instead of being in control. Most financial damage doesn't happen during big moments. It happens during moments you barely register. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that feels like a decision. You're not stressed, but you are tired. You're not reckless, but you are on autopilot. You open an app, you don't really look at the screen. One tap, then life moves on. At the time, it feels harmless, too small to matter, almost invisible. There's no argument in your head, no warning sign, no feeling that says this is important. But that's exactly why it works, because this moment doesn't feel like a money decision. It feels like convenience, like normal, like nothing. Then weeks later, something feels off. Money feels tighter, options feel smaller. You start wondering how it happened. You replay the stress, you replay the regret, but you don't replay this moment because you didn't notice it when it happened. The decision was already made, quietly, automatically, without drama. And if this feels uncomfortably familiar, that's not coincidence. It means there's a moment you keep missing, a moment that feels harmless, but keeps deciding everything later. Stress doesn't show up when the decision happens. It shows up later. Regret doesn't arrive with the action. It arrives weeks, sometimes months after. That's why it feels confusing. You're looking at the result, but you can't remember choosing it. Nothing dramatic happened. There was no moment where you said, "This is a bad idea." Life just kept moving. Money kept flowing. And one day, you noticed the pressure. Not because you made a mistake, but because the bill finally came due. You didn't fail at money. You were dropped into a system that was never neutral. Banks don't design accounts for clarity. Apps don't design payments for awareness. Companies don't want you to feel the decision. They want the transaction to feel invisible. So money doesn't wait for your attention. It assigns itself. Subscriptions renew quietly. Bills pull automatically. Small amounts move first, because small amounts don't trigger resistance. And once money starts moving this way, your role changes. You're not choosing anymore. You're reacting. That's why discipline feels exhausting. That's why being smarter never sticks, because you're trying to fight a system from inside the system. And here's the part most people miss. The problem isn't spending too much. The problem is where money lives before it gets spent. If money sits in one place, unassigned, unprotected, exposed to everything, then life will decide for you. And that's the moment that actually matters. Nothing felt wrong when it happened, because the cost didn't arrive with the choice. It arrived later, quietly, without a memory attached. That delay is why this keeps working, and why you never thought to stop it. So you try to fix it with discipline, budgets, tracking, being more aware. It works for a week. Then life pulls your attention away, and money keeps moving anyway. That's the problem. Anything that only works when you're paying attention isn't a solution. It's a delay. Here's the part most people never get told. Control doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from changing what money is allowed to do first. When money arrives and stays mixed, every system around you gets a vote. Apps, bills, subscriptions, convenience. They all move faster than attention. But the moment money is separated before life touches it, the game changes. Spending stops being invisible. Small decisions stop slipping through. Not because you're watching everything, but because money has boundaries now. And boundaries create pause. That pause is where choice comes back. This is why things finally start feeling lighter. Not perfect, but manageable. Because for the first time, you're not chasing money after it moves. You're deciding before it can. Here's what actually changes things. It's deciding once, before life gets loud. You don't manage money all month. You set rules at the beginning and let them run. Some money becomes untouchable. Some money gets delayed. Some money is harder to reach than your impulses. That's it. Miss that setup and every choice feels urgent. Everything competes. Nothing feels clear. Do it right and decisions get quieter. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop guessing. You stop feeling like money is slipping when you weren't looking. Not because you're perfect, but because the system is doing the work. If this changed how you see money, subscribe. And comment the money problem you're dealing with right now. I'll break it down in the next video.